Hi, we're Richard and Jackie from Early Retirement Wanderlust.
This week we've had the unenviable task of trying to clear my mum's house ready for putting it up for sale. And one of the things we've realised is that our parents' generation led such a frugal and yet a really sensible lifestyle.
So in this video, we thought we would take a little bit of a trip down memory lane and share some of those frugal lifestyle choices that our parents all made and perhaps think about how we can incorporate some of those in our lifestyles today.
We've spent most of this week clearing mum's house and getting it ready to put up for sale. And that was an unenviable task that I wasn't really looking forward to, but actually it's brought back so many happy memories of my childhood in that home. And one of the things that really surprised me is that there was a lot of stuff in the house that mum was still using when she was living there that she was actually using when I was at school, which is 30, 40 years ago, which was quite frightening, really.
And it did make us really think about the fact that our parents' generation were a real generation of make, do and mend. Things weren't replaced unless they absolutely needed to be. And we did start thinking about sort of how frugal the lifestyle was in that generation. And we did come up with quite a few things that we think we are really going to try and apply in our lives. So Richard's going to start with one of his favourite sayings that I'm pretty sure you've all heard him say before.
Surely you've heard cash is king, and that is one of the biggest things that I got from my parents. In fact, we both got from our parents. Our parents' generation, dad, mum used to get paid cash at the end of the week, and it had to last. And one of the things that we found, the best way of budgeting is actually we take £200 cash out a week. All our bills are paid electronically, but that £200 has to last, and it's amazing how it keeps you to budget.
And our children have actually adopted a similar process, but they're a little bit more fancy-dancy. They've got Starling bank accounts, and they've worked it out that they can put all of their money into different pots so that all that's left in their bank account is their £200 a week, so they can't overspend. So they do the same thing, just in a more modern way.
My dad was a really straight-talking Yorkshireman, and he said you've got two things. You've got money coming in and you've got money going out, and you need to make sure that the money coming in covers the money going out. So for us, that really means just spend within your means, and we've been really mindful of that, of making sure that if we want something, then we have to make sure that we've got the income to cover that, and we can't just keep living off a series of wish lists. We have to make sure that our income matches our expenditure or is more than our expenditure.
And this next point is very much linked with what Richard said about spending within your means, and that is don't rely on credit. For us at the moment, I suppose that's quite easy. We don't have an income, so we can't get any credit because we're early retired and we don't get our pensions for another few months. But we were perhaps a little bit in danger when we were working that we would get things on credit and then keep paying it off, which cost us more in the long run. Our parents' generation would save up something and they would only buy it if they had the money to get it. So this next point is a really vivid memory for me, and that is the generation of make, do and mend. And when I was younger, right through my teenage years, me and my mum used to sit down with a sewing machine and make most of my clothes, and I used to knit all of my jumpers. I'm not that much of a crafter these days, but it did remind me, these are my favourite shorts. You'll have seen me hiking in them in all of our videos over the last 3 years, but they have got holes in the pocket and I'm about to lose my mobile phone if I'm not careful. Really, I was about to chuck these shorts out, but I am going to find some nice material and I am going to mend them so that I can keep using them this year.
And then when I was clearing out my dad's garage, there were so many gardening tools there, and not even his own gardening tools, his dad's gardening tools that had been repaired, stuck together, little bits screwed back on, and it was just a way of making things last. And you know, I'm now inheriting my grandfather's gardening tools, which is quite incredible, really. Our parents' generation were definitely ones for borrowing and not necessarily buying. And a prime example of that, just this last week, is I needed to cut the hedges in the garden. And I ain't got any tools for that, but Ken next door has. So Ken lent me his hedge clippers. And then that leads me on to the next point, which is a bit of a skills trade, because Ken lent me that, and I ain't got anything to give back in return apart from a little bit of hard labour. So I actually got up the ladders because Ken's in his 80s now and didn't want to go up the ladders and clear out his guttering. So I traded my skill in terms of clearing the guttering and going up the ladders for the use of borrowing his hedge cutters. All something that came from a different generation, but is something that is just so valuable, because why would I want to go out and buy hedge cutters for something that I do twice a year? These next few frugal tips, and that wasn't easy to say, are all to do with shopping.
And actually, something that we've always done for years now is to make shopping lists when we go shopping so that we know exactly what we want and nothing else goes in the basket unless it's just the odd tiny treat. We went shopping in Aldi last week and we didn't have a list and we spent over £100, which was a bit of a shock. I do remember when I was living at home still, going round Quick Save with my mum, and the shopping list was sacrosanct. You couldn't add anything else into that basket. I also remember, this has nothing to do with shopping lists, that the fruit and veg man used to come down in his little van on the road and knock on everyone's door, and we'd buy all of our fresh fruit and veg from the fruit and veg man. That's something that I think I would still love to do.
My mum always used to shop the offers, and she was really good at cutting the coupons and trying to save money here and there. But she was also really wise, because she said an offer's not always an offer unless you really need it. And how often have we gone into supermarkets and we've been attracted by what looks like an amazing offer to buy something that we weren't actually planning on buying? So yeah, look for the offers, look for the deals, but is it really a deal that you really need as well? So it's a twofold thing, that one.
So this next point about cooking homemade meals wasn't really an option in our parents' generation. They didn't have access to all of these ready-made meals that we can just pop down to the co-op or to Tesco's and buy. So they did cook everything from scratch. And actually, it was a much healthier way, as well as good on your wallet, for eating. You ate healthily, you got the nutrients you needed, and you didn't have to spend as much as you can on some of these ready-made meals.
One of the things we definitely took from our parents' generation was the sit-down meal event. And as kids, we used to sit down on a Sunday with our grandparents around the table, and we used to chew the fat, and it was a big event. And when we brought our kids up, probably one of the only times we came together as a family was around the Sunday table. And linked with that, we used that time to talk about why it was really important to keep on a budget. So it was really important that our kids understood that we had to keep to a budget. It was important that they understood that if they wanted a nice summer holiday, then we couldn't be going out and spending lots of money. And to try and keep the whole family on track, that generational chat around the Sunday table, coming together, having a meal, chatting about the week ahead, was really, really important and helped keep us all on track in terms of understanding why we had to keep on a budget.
I also remember being petrified of asking if I could leave the table early, because it was always no, and you've got to finish your meal first. And yeah, it was a real generation thing that you had to sit at the table and not leave.
Yeah, my granddad absolutely insisted that we said, "Thank you for a nice tea, please may I leave the table?" And he decided whether we left or not. I mean, that is a little bit old-fashioned, and we never insisted on that with our kids.
And can you imagine taking a mobile phone to the table with your mum and dad and granny and granddad? Ooh. When our children were growing up and they would grow out of their clothing really quickly, we used to trade and hand-me-down clothes between myself and my sister's children. And it was a good way of, one, making sure all of the clothes that we bought had good value and good use. Some of them went through 4 children. And it was just a way of saving money as well. Now our children are adults. They've taken it to the next level. When we were cleaning out all of our attic and all of our old house when we moved here, they went through all of our old uni clothes, which was a real sort of 80s vibe, and they have got a whole wardrobe of retro 1980s wardrobe care of their mum and dad. In return, we do get some of their hand-me-downs because they are always buying new work clothes, and occasionally they'll say, "Oh, do you want this, mum?" And I'm like, "Yep."
Regular viewers of the channel will know that I have absolutely no DIY skills at all, but our parents' generation were really good at doing it themselves. My dad was a master craftsman, and he did everything in his house, and he also did everything in our house until he passed away. And much to his disgust, I had no skills, whereas We moved into this cottage, it was a renovation project, and we couldn't do any of the complicated stuff, but it was amazing what we could do, and rather than subcontracting it out to tradies to paint and things like that, the skills that we could apply, we saved money on.
And not forgetting how amazing our DIY skills were building that shed a few weeks ago that we did the video about. I've already reminisced about the fruit and veg van that came down the road and we could go into his van and choose what fresh food we wanted. But our parents' generation, and certainly their parents' generation, actually grew most of their fresh food and they would eat what was in season. Now, we can't do that at the moment. We are not in the country, or we're certainly not at home long enough for us to look after growing any of the vegetables. But my mum has an allotment, and Richard's dad had the most tremendous allotment. And actually, for many years, we have loved when parents have come and bought baskets full of fresh food. We've still got a freezer full of things from last summer, from Mum's tomatoes that we made into a ratatouille sauce and froze, loads of apples, we've got loads of hedgerow fruits that we went out and picked, we've got damsons, and actually it's just making use of the fruit and veg that you are given. When Richard's dad used to bring us a big basket of fruit and veg from his allotment, we would look at it and plan our weekly meals around it. And growing your own food is actually quite fun as well. When we stop travelling as much, it is something that we're thinking about for our garden.
Dead simple, this next one. Dry your clothes on a washing line. It costs you nothing.
If we think back, most of us probably grew up in families where we only had one car, or maybe even not a car at all. And we had to walk everywhere, or we'd certainly get our bikes out to get from A to B. Something myself and Richard do quite a lot anyway. Quite hard living in our little village where we are. We do need to get in the car to go and buy our groceries, but we do try and walk as much as we can and not have to get the car out.
One of the things we've definitely adopted from our parents' generation is cheap entertainment. Now, it's not that I'm a tight Yorkshireman, but I do like a good free thing. So we like nothing better than getting out into the mountains and going for a good walk. But when it comes to entertaining, we just like people coming to our house. We like having dinner parties. We like cooking for people. And it's just so much more relaxed than going out to a posh restaurant. And it's obviously much, much cheaper. Now, it might seem a little bit strange coming from early retirement wanderlust, but contrary to popular belief, we were not particularly well travelled when we were youngsters. Our family holidays were really modest, UK-based holidays. We went away for a few days to local seaside towns. We stayed at local B&Bs, and it was just so lovely. And we've got so many fond memories of being with our parents on the sands, and it was just really the time with them.
We still actually go to Whitby now. Both of us, when we were younger, that was our place of choice for our families. You went to Blackpool quite a lot as well, didn't you? But we still go to Whitby because that is where we have our fondest memories from. And actually with our children as well, their fondest memories of some of the holidays we took them on are when we used to go camping in Cornwall, because they loved Mother Ivy's Bay. It had its own little beach, it was really safe, and they could just chill out and not do anything for 2 weeks apart from surf and barbecue, I think, was probably their best memories. We took them on a holiday to America. Obviously, they loved it. They loved going to the Disney and Universal worlds. But actually, I think their favourite memories are probably still camping in Cornwall.
And for us, it's just that time together as a family. It's not necessarily the destination. Now, obviously, in our early retired wanderlust, we're travelling a lot more extensively, but we do like to think that we're still keeping with that ethos of doing it on a budget, and we're just trying to see as much as we possibly can on the budget that we've got, and keeping that budget under control means that we've got more opportunities to go to more places.
Yeah, I think we're just posh camping now. Instead of being in a tent, we're in a campervan.
So that's it. We hope that you have enjoyed this little trip down memory lane.
And if any of this resonates with you, or you want to share some of your top tips and memories, then pop them in the comments below.
And likewise, if you think we've missed anything, please pop them in the comments below, because we want to nick your ideas for our own frugal living.
So that's it from us. Until next week. Bye.
See ya.